Every time I tell this story, it's never easy. It gets more familiar. It's the best way I can say it. And I always try to center myself before I tell this story. It's gonna get a little deep here, folks. That's the point of all this shit, okay? I have goosebumps right now. It's 10:29 in the morning. It's March 24th. Why am I here on this date at this time? Because that's my hero. That's my dad. I always start this, if I start it the right way, my head's in the right place, I always start this by saying my dad is my hero. It's not was, because he's gone. Is. Always will be. I wouldn't be the man I am without him. I don't know who the hell I'd be without him, frankly. And I'm pretty happy with who I've become. So, tip of the cap to Mark. Who was my dad? At the time of his death, he was 26-year vet, Buffalo Fire. Badass. Didn't take any shit from anybody, especially me. And believe me, I tried to give him all kinds of shit, and it just never worked. Won various awards in the county, local levels as well, but I just couldn't find any evidence of that. Or he had plaques, he had walls and walls of plaques and all this shit. He had a key to the town, all this stuff. Or a key to the city, I'm sorry, the same thing Terrell Owens got, so. It was cool before he got it. Terrell Owens screwed it up. Firefighter of the year, 96. His greatest achievement of his career was in 97, October 14th, 738 Prospect Avenue. Rescued a 6-year-old boy, Tito Suarez, I believe was his name. There is footage. The news had been there, fully involved, house, and here comes my dad out the front door carrying this 6-year-old, lifeless. Pulling his gear off, holding the kid, shedding his gear, runs with him, gets him in the ambulance, and he's working him the whole way to Children's Hospital, saved his life. Dad's a fucking hero. National recognition, even appeared on Geraldo Rivera. I don't know how dated that is when I give this in 2022. But back in 97, fuck you, that was the shit. Ow! He's a lot grayer now. But look at him holding the Rescue One shirt, and my dad couldn't have been prouder. My dad did not show a lot of emotion. One of the few times I ever actually saw him cry was before he was recognized as Firefighter of the Year before the Fireman's Ball. So it took him so much achievement to even get to the point of just tearing up and being happy for himself for a moment. And you kind of see the writing on the wall where this story might be going. My father's critical incidents. This is the big tie-in. This is why I tell this story, why it's relevant to you. My father suffered childhood abuse and neglect. My grandfather, his father, was not a great person. He was an alcoholic. He was abusive. He tore my family apart because of his addiction. Hurt my grandma, hurt my aunt, caused tons of dissension within the Jarzik side of the family. Since I was a kid, that was my normal, to see dissension. As sad as that is. Frequently responded to fires, burned bodies. Firefighters are sick, they call them crispy critters. That's how they cope. That's a little gallows humor. I should touch on that maybe because it's important. Burned bodies of adults, even children. He was at the scene, Flight 3407, activated as part of Rescue One to recover body parts, and he would come home and tell me stories, and he's digging through trying to find people, and this FBI agent walks up to him and says, hey, move your fucking leg. And my dad's like, who the fuck are you? And he's kneeling on someone's head that is deceased. That's how gruesome that scene was. So this is, I know, if I could point to a moment where I actually saw change in him, it was on August 24th of 09 when Chip and John died in that fire. I'll never forget the phone call. I didn't go to work that day because my dad was so upset. And I never seen my dad upset. It's like, what the hell is this? Bottom line is the most important. He never discussed the emotional impact. Yes, he was happy when he got Firefighter of the Year. He was elated. Yes, he was upset and he cried. But he never talked about shit. It was just like, fuck. It's like, get these tears out of my eyes. What is this salty discharge? What the fuck is this? I'm quoting Seinfeld. I throw this out there, and I was hoping to get this in somewhere. Think about it, if you would become curious for me at some point. Think about somebody that's about to cry, especially in our line of work, and they're about to get emotional, what is typically the one thing they say when they get emotional? Sorry. Why the fuck are we apologizing? Why is that hardwired into us to apologize when we're getting emotional? Something real you're talking about. That's the moment you need the most support, and you're apologizing. It's like hardwired in us. I don't know if it's a societal thing or what, but I want more discussion about that. So put that in the back of your mind. Why the hell? And if you notice it, let me know. I'm very curious about that. Why are we apologizing for this shit? Why are we apologizing for being human? Toughest slide, right out of the gate. Toughest slide I ever made in my life. And I had to search deep for some of them Ric Flair pictures. December 11th, 2011. This is the worst day of my life. And if God is good to me, and he has been very good to me so far, that's the worst day of my life. And that will remain the worst day until I'm old and gray in the ground and you're throwing dirt on me. I hope that's it. That's why I'm up here. I was at a Christmas party the night before, an ugly sweater party at my best friend's house. And I had a beautiful, disgusting mustache at that time. And I had this cardigan. I think it was a lady's cardigan. Life was good. Life was normal. I think I won the contest. It was the ugliest. It was tight too, looking yoked up. Life was normal. And I woke up to what I thought was the sound of children playing outside. My bedroom's in the back of the house, and I heard out of the back of the house this high-pitched wailing, if you will, and I didn't recognize it. I just thought it was kids playing when I first woke up. What the fuck is that? But you know that feeling as cops. You go into the same room multiple times. For some reason, this time you walk in that room, you get that pit in your stomach. Something's different. I knew that. Some part of me knew something was wrong. And I sprung up, and when you're in a traumatic moment, your brain takes trauma snapshots. You'll remember scenes of that morning. For some reason, I remember the exact socks I was wearing. Thick wool with a red cuff. I threw them out because fuck those socks. I ran out to the back door, and I looked out the back window, and I could see my mom coming toward me. And the garage door was open at that time. So I said, all right, it's her screaming. You know, my brain's racing. What the hell is going on right now? I run down the back steps, get to the back door, open it, and as soon as I do, as soon as my mom looks at me, she runs back. She doesn't say shit. She runs back in the garage and closes the door, and I'm like, what the fuck? What the fuck? My brain is like, I think I know what's going on, but what the fuck is going on right now? And I said this in my interview, to some degree. Why do you think you'd be a good cop? Because that main door closed, and there's a man door on the side, and I didn't know what was going to be behind that door. But I know that it needed my help, and I know my mom needed me. So I had to go. Whatever was behind that door was going to face me, and I was going to bring hell with me. Because you don't want to hear your mom cry like that. And I hope to God I don't get a day worse than this, and I never hear my mom cry like that again. The moment I opened that door, my mom's standing on the other side of it. And the moment I turned and saw my father's lifeless body hanging from the rafters of the garage, she said, your father killed himself. It all hit me. Same moment. Sight, sound, ow. There we were. As a son, now as an officer, at the time I was not, you want to help, right? So I said, fuck it, let's cut him down. Let's figure this out. Let's give him, CPR. But closer I examined him without getting a horribly graphic, rigor had set in and it was over. That was it. My hero was gone in an instant. I went from an ugly Christmas sweater party to my dad's lifeless body in a day. So if I tell the ugly part of that story and the dark part of that story, I have to tell the light. It took me a lot of years to be able to articulate this and recognize this, because it's probably the most vulnerable moment of my life. My brother had stood back and he called police I believe I said Don Hanley last time. I'm pretty sure it was Don Hanley. I've never looked at the complaint card. I never want to, but I believe Don Hanley was the first one on. Thank you, Don, for seeing what you have to see in this job. My brother was, getting the cavalry, and my mom went to walk out of the garage, and she stopped, and she said, "No, I can't leave." This part always gets me, always will, because I love my mom so much. This is probably the most beautiful moment the beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life. We knew my dad he was up and down sometimes. He'd have bad days and good days. He'd sleep a lot. I didn't really recognize that as depression, which I should have, but I didn't know that then, so I can't hold myself accountable. My dad was struggling, and it became, of course, wildly apparent to us in that moment that he was struggling a whole hell of a lot more than we'd ever thought. And my mom felt horrible. We all did. So in that moment, my mom didn't want to leave his side, and as police were on their way and fire, my mom stood next to him, and she held his hand. I stood next to her and put my arm around her. That was the most loyal thing I've ever seen in my life. That was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life. He was gone, and she didn't want to see him alone anymore, because it's a lot harder the second time I thought. It was very apparent to us how lonely he was leading up to that moment. And she didn't want him to be alone until the police got there. And my mom's the strongest woman I'll ever know. To stand there and hold his hand, shit. That's a level of beauty that I didn't know existed. And now you know that exists. That's loyalty, my friends. That's what keeps us in this line of work, is we love this shit. We love what we do for the community. We're loyal people at heart. So, now what the fuck do we do? 26 years old, right? Just turned 26, freshly minted 26-year-old boy, truly. I remember looking up at him thinking, what the fuck are we gonna do? What the hell am I gonna do? I never judged my father. I was mad. I'm mad that he's gone. I'm mad that he can't see me on the job. I didn't criticize him because I knew that my grandpa was kind of a dick and my dad had some darkness in his past. And I say that to say, if you see somebody struggling in this job, in this line of work, anywhere in life, don't judge them. Don't criticize them, because that's just you putting your bullshit on them. They're struggling for a reason. What can be learned? That's where I shifted my focus. What can be learned from this shit? It took me a long time in therapy to actually embrace that idea that something should be learned from this. I didn't want anything to be learned. Fuck that. That's the worst day of my life. Nothing good can come from that. I was stubborn as hell. And after a while, I started to work through some beautiful trauma therapy and put things in perspective for me. It got me back on track. And that's why I'm up here. I need to go into that darkness to pull some shit out and say, hey, this is gonna be valuable here. That's what brings darkness, or brings purpose to my darkness from my dad. And that's what helps me honor his legacy. My father's cumulative stress overwhelmed him. All that bullshit in that slide that I talked about. And there's plenty more. God knows how many fire calls he went to and how many dead bodies he saw. And, weird shit along the way, even from childhood. And I will always say that my dad's fucked up childhood. It's like building a beautiful house and you're looking at it from the street like, damn, that's a good looking house. But that foundation was always cracked. Always cracked. It's a matter of time before that house started to shift a little bit, unless he went down there and fixed that foundation. And back in his day, that was never a thing. Never talked about his traumas, never positively coped with them. I'm good, right? Put on that tough face, that badass face, and went to work. The conversation that we're having right now, the Captain Unger is champion and the Chief champions, just wasn't a thing. Wasn't a thing. How could I be mad at my dad if that was never really a thing? You were a man, you shut the fuck up and you dealt with it. I want to reframe this. Stephanie wants to reframe this. Captain Unger wants to reframe this. I don't want you to go to critical incidents. I don't want you to be scared of them. I don't want you to say, oh, that's going to fuck me up and that's going to give me PTSD and then my career is over. No. the tools and methods available to take these critical incidents and greatly minimize their effects. That was the last line with the booyah, the critical incident definition. I want you to view these as 188 opportunities to work on yourself, to get better at getting better. You have opportunities to do that. We have the potential to be some of the most mentally healthy and strong people out there. Or we could take that 188 and deny it and say, I'm badass, I don't need all this hippy-dippy bullshit, and let it just overwhelm you after a while. And retire bitter. That's what I don't want for any one of you. On your last day, I want you to retire with your head up. I don't give a shit what Tish, the dish, ever says about you guys. I know the work we do because I am a goddamn cop. And I know what we do is noble and society's always gonna need it. I want you to retire with your head up. You deserve to, everybody. You can grow stronger after a critical incident. Yes, that's the thing. If you don't believe me, maybe you'll believe Mad Dog, former defense secretary.
If you assume that there's something wrong with people, if you do it long enough, expectations are very strong. There's also something called post-traumatic growth, where you come out of a situation like that and you actually feel kinder toward your fellow man, fellow woman, that you are actually a better husband, father. You actually have a closer relationship with your God. You do not have to go around apologizing if there's some rage in you, although if we tell our veterans enough that this is what's wrong with them, they may actually start believing it. I would just say there's one misperception of our veterans, and that is they are somehow damaged goods. I don't buy it, and I think that that kind of self-pity, while victimhood in America is exalted, I don't think our veterans should join those ranks. If you assume that there's some...
So, you're gonna go to 188, some more, some less. Nobody is to say that you're gonna be damaged goods when you're done. There are methods, there are tools available, and there's a culture that I hope to help grow here so that that 188 does not get beside you and fuck you up. I want you to grow. At the very least, you cope with it effectively. I'm the dreamer. I hope that we can take those 188 and use those as opportunities to grow stronger. Be a better father, better husband, better wife, better friend, whatever it is, better employee, whatever, better officer, who gives a fuck. That's what I hope. I know we can get there. In the next hour, I'm gonna show you some things to help us get there. With that, take 10.
You can be a better wife.
I could be a better wife.
You should.
Leave any cleanup for everybody else?
I had 2 cups.
30 want ones, that's why I
2
brought
cups.
them.
Probably gonna be a third.
Anyone else
Freedom,
almost
it's
not
your
making
fault.
through that? Cause that was me. Fuck me, Dave.
Trying to make
I almost got up and left. I mean, it was great, but holy fuck. Maybe I'm fucked up too, but
Well,
I almost had to leave, sorry.